friends, welcome back. Or if you're new here, welcome to Dark Roast Caffeine Case Files. I'm your host, Kate. Now, I know at the end of the last episode, I said I would be starting another 3-part series from the 1920s. However, we recently came across this story and I absolutely had to tell this story. Wild. I'm going to take you across the border to Las Vegas, Nevada in 2021. So grab your favorite caffeinated drink, sip slowly, and please enjoy this episode. Just a quick listener advisory, this episode does contain violence, drug use, mental health issues, and murder. Please take care of yourself while listening to this episode, and if you need to skip this episode, you can always come back. The 911 call comes on the afternoon of April 9th, 2021. Peggy Newman, Daniel Halseth's landlord and close friend, has just made a horrifying discovery. She went to his home near Durango and Alta Drives in northwest Las Vegas. After his mother, Christine, raised the alarm, Daniel hadn't answered his phone in days. What Peggy finds inside that garage will haunt her for the rest of her life. The house smells of smoke. There's a large scorched patch on the living room floor. In the garage, the stench of lighter fluid is overwhelming. A sleeping bag lies on the ground, and when Peggy looks inside, she sees what's left of Daniel Halseth. His body has been burned, 40% of it charred beyond recognition. But the fire wasn't enough to destroy what happened before. An autopsy will later reveal that Daniel was stabbed approximately 70 times, mostly in the head and neck. One wound severed a major artery, both of his lungs were punctured, and some of the wounds were made by a saw. Today we're diving deep into a case that shocked Las Vegas and captured international attention, not just for its brutality, but for the people behind it. A 16-year-old girl, her 18-year-old boyfriend, a forbidden romance, and a father who tried to protect his daughter from a relationship he sensed was dangerous. This is a story of Sierra Halseth, Aaron Guerrero, and the story of Daniel Halseth's murder. To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we have to go back to the beginning, way back. Daniel Halseth met Elizabeth Schroerake while he was in college in Salem, Oregon. They were young, they were in love, and by all accounts, they made a beautiful couple. They married in the early 2000s and had 3 children together, 2 daughters and a son. For a time, their life seemed stable, even enviable. The family eventually relocated to Las Vegas, where Daniel founded his own computer technology company. He was a tech entrepreneur, a father of 3, a husband supporting his wife's ambitions, and Elizabeth was ambitious. She entered politics, running for a seat in the Nevada State Senate. Daniel became the primary parent during her campaign, holding down the home while his wife pursued public office. He was her biggest supporter, her #1 cheerleader, as one source put it. Elizabeth's campaign was built on traditional values, family morality, and wholesomeness, and it worked. In 2010, she was elected to the Nevada State Senate, becoming the youngest woman ever to serve in that body. The Halseth family looked like a political success story, the American dream in living color. But behind closed doors, something was already beginning to crumble. Shortly after Elizabeth won her Senate seat, Daniel noticed a change. His wife was spending more and more time communicating with a man named Tiger. Constant texting, endless phone calls. Daniel reached out to Tiger directly, asking him to back off. The calls didn't stop. Then, Elizabeth and Tiger took an extended work trip together, alone. When she returned, Daniel confronted her what he suspected was an affair. The confrontation turned into a heated argument. Voices were raised, accusations flew. What happened next would alter the course of Daniel's life forever. During that argument, according to Elizabeth, Daniel touched her inappropriately. She went to the police. Daniel was arrested and charged with open and gross lewdness, a sex crime. He was found guilty. The sentence: 6 months of probation, anger management classes, and a registration as a sex offender. Daniel always maintained his innocence, claiming the physical contact was incidental during a heated argument. But the conviction stood. and in the bitter divorce and custody battle that followed, it became a weapon used against him. Daniel filed for divorce in 2011. The proceedings were ugly, public, contentious, and devastating for him. Elizabeth was forced to resign from the Senate in February 2012, citing difficulties balancing single motherhood with her legislative duties. But she had already moved on. She took the 3 children and relocated to Alaska to live with Tiger, whom she later married. Daniel was denied custody of his own children. He was left alone, heartbroken, and branded as a sex offender. The next few years were a period of rebuilding for Daniel. He poured himself into his computer business. He fought to maintain a relationship with his children, seeing them whenever he could, despite the distance. Eventually, he remarried to a woman named Bogdana, and for a moment, it seemed like his life was on track. But that marriage also fell apart. By 2019, Daniel was alone again. Then something shifted. Elizabeth and the children decided to move back to Las Vegas from Alaska. The kids had missed it there, and suddenly, Daniel had the chance to be a real presence in his children's lives again. His youngest daughter, Sierra, was now a teenager, and despite the court orders that had granted custody to Elizabeth, Sierra began spending more and more time with her father. By late 2020, she had essentially moved in with Daniel. He was overjoyed. This was a chance he'd been waiting for, to repair the damage, to be the father he'd always wanted to be. Daniel sought custody of Sierra through the courts, hoping to formalize what was already happening in practice. But the judge ordered Sierra returned to her mother's residence, so Daniel complied. Sierra did not. She snuck out of her mother's house and went right back to her father. To Daniel, this must have felt like a victory, proof that his daughter chose him. But to Sierra, her father's home may have felt like something else entirely, a refuge, a cage. We may never know for certain. What we do know is that around this time, Sierra's life intersected with someone who would change everything. Aaron Guerrero. Sierra and Aaron began dating in June 2020. She was 15, he was 18, technically an adult under Nevada law. For the teenagers, it was the kind of intense, all-consuming romance that often defines those years. But for the parents on both sides, there were immediate red flags. The couple's relationship progressed quickly. By December 2020, Sierra and Aaron were planning to run away together to Los Angeles. They'd made arrangements, they had a plan, but Daniel found out, and he did what any concerned parent might do. He alerted Elizabeth, and together, they approached Aaron's parents. All 4 adults agreed. Sierra and Aaron needed to stop seeing each other. The relationship was forbidden. For Sierra, this was an act of betrayal. Her father, the man she had chosen to live with, was now the one standing between her and the boy she loved. The rage she felt would simmer beneath the surface for months. But here's what's critical to understand. Daniel and Elizabeth didn't just forbid the relationship out of spite. They were responding to something they sensed was dangerous about Aaron, something that, in hindsight, looks chillingly prescient. We need to talk about Aaron Guerrero. Who was he, and what was going on inside his head? Aaron was 18 years old at the time of the murder. He was, by his own admission, struggling with significant mental health issues. In a jailhouse interview years later, he revealed that he had been prescribed medication for his mental health, but that he wasn't taking it. In his words, quote, "I would pretend like I would take it, and I feel like that has some form or impact in what happened." But it wasn't just untreated mental illness. Aaron was also using drugs, specifically LSD, which he said he obtained online and was taking often around the time of the murder. Quote, "I don't think I would have been capable of something like that had I been sober," he later told investigators. Quote, "Because it's a psychological drug, as most people know, and when you have a mental illness, it only makes it worse." Aaron described his state of mind during that period as unstable, impulsive, and detached from reality. He also carried a weapon, something he would later reference in explaining how the murder unfolded. Quote, I always carried a weapon, he said. Let that sink in. An 18-year-old boy, mentally unstable, self-medicating with psychedelics, armed and unpredictable, and he was dating Daniel's 15-year-old daughter. Is it any wonder why Daniel wanted them apart? Sierra, for her part, had her own narrative about her father. And it's a narrative we have to examine carefully because it goes to the heart of what happened on April 8, 2021. During court proceedings, Sierra read a letter to the judge detailing multiple instances of SA and harassment by her father. She described him as a drug addict and pedophile. These are serious allegations, and they were publicly disputed by Daniel's family, who insisted that the claims were false. Daniel's mother, Christine, and other relatives have consistently rejected Sierra's accusations, calling them part of a pattern of manipulation. So where does the truth lie? We may never know for certain. What is clear is that Sierra believed, or at least claimed to believe, that her father was abusive, and that belief, whether grounded in reality or not, fueled her actions. Prosecutors in the case, however, pointed out to a different motive. Daniel had forbidden Sierra from seeing Aaron, and Sierra was furious. April 8, 2021. The day before Daniel's body would be discovered. That day, Sierra and Aaron made a series of purchases using Daniel's debit card. They hit ATMs around Las Vegas, withdrawing hundreds of dollars. Then they went into a supermarket buying items and Home Depot. What did they buy? Disposable gloves, bleach, cleaning cloths, a circular saw blades, lighter fluid. They were preparing for something. That evening, Sierra and Aaron went to Daniel's home. They let themselves in. Sierra had a key, of course, and they confronted Daniel in his own house. What happened next defies easy description. According to police reports and autopsy findings, the couple attacked Daniel with multiple weapons. They stabbed him approximately 70 times. Many of the wounds were concentrated in his head and neck. One slash cut through a major artery. Both lungs were punctured. There were bite wounds on his back. They didn't just kill him, they butchered him. After Daniel was dead, Sierra and Aaron stuffed his body into a sleeping bag. They poured lighter fluid on it and set it on fire, first in the living room, leaving a large scorch mark on the floor, and then again in the garage. They retrieved the circular saw they purchased earlier and attempted to dismember Daniel's body. They couldn't finish the job, but they left the saw behind, with bits of Daniel's remains still caught in the teeth of the blade. They scrubbed the house with bleach. They tried to set the entire house on fire, but the fire smoldered out. Then, Sierra and Aaron took Daniel's car and left Las Vegas. They were heading to Salt Lake City. This is the piece of evidence that would turn the case into an international sensation. While on the run, Sierra and Aaron recorded a video on Sierra's phone. They were lying in bed together, cuddled up, when Aaron began speaking into the camera. Quote, "Welcome back to our YouTube channel," he said, kissing Sierra on the head. Day 3 after murdering somebody. Sierra laughed and responded, quote, "Whoa, don't put that on camera." But the video didn't stop there. In the clip, Aaron is seen tapping Sierra's face repeatedly, then wrapping his arms around her throat. He talks about the murder, and then casually he adds, quote, "And we had sex a lot today." Sierra giggles. The video is chilling, not just for its contents, but for its tone. These two teenagers are joking about taking a human life. They're acting like they've just pulled a prank, not committed one of the most brutal murders Las Vegas police had seen in years. Family therapist Jacente Wamala, who analyzed the video for KTNV, noted something significant about the couple's dynamic. There was a lot that showed dynamics in the relationship and a little bit of power relationally. She pointed to the way Aaron touched Sierra, tapping her cheek, grabbing her throat, as indicators of a relationship with a clear power imbalance. Aaron, the older partner, was in control. Wamala also observed that the teenager's casual attitude toward the murder reflected a deeper disconnect from the consequences. Quote, "They just do what they know how to do without the separation of the consequences and repercussions of those actions," she said, pointing to a generation raised on social media where public sharing is instinctual. Meanwhile, back in Las Vegas, Daniel's family was growing increasingly alarmed. Daniel's second ex-wife, Bogdana, had received bank notifications about unusual withdrawals from an account she still shared with Daniel. She tried calling him, no answer. She texted, nothing. So she reached out to Daniel's mother, Christine. Christine began calling and texting her son, still nothing. She texted Sierra, asking to speak to her father. Sierra replied that Daniel's phone was, quote, acting up, but that he was okay. Christine was relieved for a moment. But when another day passed without contact, Christine's worry returned. She texted Sierra again, this time demanding to speak to Daniel directly. Sierra told her that Daniel was in the shower. Christine then knew that something was terribly wrong. She contacted Peggy Newman, Daniel's landlord and close friend, and asked her to do a welfare check. At the same time, Christine called the police to request the same. Peggy and a friend arrived at Daniel's house ahead of the police. They found the door unlocked, the house reeking of smoke, and the horrifying scene in the garage. The 911 call was made, police arrived, and the search for Sierra and Aaron began. It didn't take long. Surveillance footage showed the couple using Daniel's debit card at multiple locations. They had been spotted withdrawing cash, buying supplies, and ultimately boarding a train in Salt Lake City. On April 13, 2021, 4 days after Daniel's body was found, Sierra Halseth and Aaron Guerrero were arrested in Salt Lake City. The Halseth family was devastated. Daniel's mother, Christine, released statements expressing her horror at what had been done to her son. In Daniel's obituary, his family deliberately left Sierra's name out. They wanted the public to know Sierra was no longer their family. She was her father's killer. Daniel's family described his death as a result of a horrifying, brutal, senseless, violent, and heartbreaking murder plot. It called for the harshest penalties allowed by law. Elizabeth Helgeline, Sierra's mother and Daniel's ex-wife, faced a nightmare of her own. Her daughter had murdered her ex-husband. When asked for comment, she released a carefully worded statement, quote, "This is the only time I will address this during the campaign. I will always love my daughter. It horrifies me that our system didn't take the abuse she was receiving seriously before it came to this. My daughter was abused by her father. That is a fact. That doesn't excuse all of her actions. At the time, she was a minor and has taken responsibility like an adult. She is now facing the consequences like an adult." That statement is remarkable, not just for its defense of Sierra, but for its timing. Elizabeth was running for political office at the time. We need to talk about Sierra's mental state. What was going on in the mind of a 16-year-old girl who could participate in her father's murder and then joke about it on video? Licensed family therapist Jacent Wamala, speaking generally about cases involving teen offenders, noted several factors that can contribute to such behavior: trauma, inconsistencies in home life, losses, and compounding factors that build up to create a perfect storm. Sierra's life was a perfect storm. She had witnessed her parents' bitter divorce and custody battle as a young child. She had been relocated to Alaska, separated by her father for years. She had watched her mother move on with another man while her father was branded as a sex offender. She had returned to Las Vegas and chosen to live with her father, only to have him forbid her from seeing a boy she loved. That's a lot for any teenager to process. But does it explain murder? Sierra's allegations of abuse against her father complicate the picture further. If true, they would paint Daniel in a very different light. As a predator, not a protector, but if false, they represent a calculated attempt to justify an unforgivable act. What we know from court records is that Sierra did not apologize at her sentencing. When given the opportunity to speak, she remained silent. Her mother spoke for her, in a sense, but Sierra herself offered no words of remorse. Aaron, by contrast, did apologize. Quote, "He didn't deserve to pass in such a horrible way," he said of Daniel. He expressed regret for his actions and in later interviews claimed to feel guilty every day. Whether those words were genuine or performative is impossible to know. In 2025, Aaron Guerrero gave a jailhouse interview that shed new light on his state of mind at the time of the murder. Now 20 years old, serving his sentence at High Desert State Prison, Aaron spoke candidly about what happened and what he thinks led to it. He blamed a combination of untreated mental illness and drug abuse. LSD in particular, he said, exasperated his existing psychological problems and made him capable of things he wouldn't have done sober. When asked whose idea the murder was, Aaron gave an answer that raises disturbing questions about Sierra's role. Quote, "She got the weapon first, and I always carry a weapon. So you know that's what led to what happened after that. She got the weapon first." Let's parse that. According to Aaron, Sierra was the one who initially armed herself. Aaron, already carrying his weapon, then joined her. The implication is that Sierra may have been the instigator, the one who escalated the confrontation into violence. But Aaron also said that the decision to kill Daniel was mutual. Quote, "It was both of our ideas because we didn't know what to do, but we knew we had to do something," he told investigators. What did they think they had to do? Remove the obstacle standing between them. Daniel had forbidden their relationship, so Daniel had to go. Aaron also revealed that he has no intention of ever speaking to Sierra again. He described his actions during the relationship as driven by impulse rather than love. The romance that had once seemed so all-consuming had evaporated into the cold light of the prison walls. On October 19th, 2020, Sierra Halseth and Aaron Guerrero were sentenced for the murder of Daniel Halseth. Both had initially pleaded not guilty to 9 charges, including murder with a deadly weapon, arson, robbery, and conspiracy. But in May 2022, they changed their pleas. Both pleaded guilty to all counts. The plea deal came with a crucial provision. Prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty against Aaron Guerrero, who was 18 at the time of the crime. Sierra, as a minor, was never eligible for capital punishment under Nevada law. The sentence, life in prison with the possibility of parole after 22 years. The judge also ordered the couple to pay $5,000 in restitution to Daniel's family. Aaron Guerrero apologized during the sentencing hearing. Quote, "He didn't deserve to pass in such a horrible way," he repeated. Sierra Halseth remained silent. This case raises difficult questions about accountability, mental health, and the limits of the justice system. First, was justice served? The Halseth family wanted the harshest penalties possible. They got life sentences with the possibility of parole. That means Sierra Halseth could be released from prison when she is 38 years old. Aaron Guerrero will be 40. Is that enough for the brutal, premeditated murder of Daniel Halseth? Second, what role did mental health play? Aaron Guerrero was open about his struggles with mental illness and substance abuse. He claimed that without LSD and his untreated condition, he wouldn't have been capable of murder. But does that make him less culpable, or does it make him more dangerous? Third, what about Sierra's allegations? If Daniel Halseth was indeed abusive, does that change how we view his daughter's actions? Or does it simply add another layer of tragedy to an already devastating story? Fourth, what responsibility do parents have? Daniel and Elizabeth Halseth both tried to end Sierra's relationship with Aaron. They approached Aaron's parents. They made their wishes clear. They did what they thought was right to protect their daughter, and it ended with Daniel dead and Sierra in prison. Was there anything they could have done differently? Should they have seen the warning signs? Or were Sierra and Aaron determined to follow their path no matter what? These questions have no easy answers. In the rush to understand Sierra and Aaron, to dissect their motivations, their mental states, their tragic choices, it's easy to forget the man at the center of the story. Daniel Halseth was not just a victim. He was a father, a son, a brother, an entrepreneur, a man who had endured public humiliation, lost custody of his children, been branded a sex offender, and yet kept fighting to be present in his daughter's life. His family described him as the heart of the Halseth family. He was found, stabbed 70 times, burned and stuffed into a sleeping bag in his own garage. His last moments on this earth were spent at the hands of his own daughter and her boyfriend, people he had tried to protect from each other. Daniel Halseth was 45 years old when he died. He was a computer technician by trade. He was Sierra's father. He was Elizabeth's ex-husband. He was Christine's son. And his life was taken by two teenagers who thought that a video of them laughing about it would make them famous. As of this recording, Sierra Halseth is incarcerated at the Florence McClure Women's Correctional Center in North Las Vegas. Aaron Guerrero is at High Desert State Prison, just a 40-minute drive away, but he says he has no plans to ever speak to his former girlfriend again. Aaron has expressed hope that he might one day be paroled. He wants to show the Halseth family that he's not a monster, and that he can still be a functioning member of society. Whether he will get that chance remains to be seen. The possibility of parole after 22 years means that in 2044, Aaron Guerrero and Sierra Halseth will be eligible to appear before a parole board. Daniel's family will have the opportunity to speak then to remind the board of the 70 stab wounds, the saw blade, the burned sleeping bag, the life that was taken. The video that Sierra and Aaron made, the one where they joked about their crime, will exist forever. It will follow them for the rest of their lives. It will be played in courtrooms, analyzed by psychologists, discussed on podcasts like this one. For Daniel Halseth's family, the video is a permanent reminder of the callousness with which their loved one's life was ended. For Sierra and Aaron, it's the evidence that sealed their fate. For the rest of us, it's a window into something dark and troubling. A glimpse of what happens when mental illness, substance abuse, teenage obsession, and unaddressed rage combined into the perfect storm that therapist Jacint Wamala warned about. We began this episode with a 911 call. We end it with a question. Could this have been prevented? Aaron Guerrero says that if he had been sober, if he had taken his medication, he wouldn't have been capable of murder. Sierra Halseth's mother says the system failed to take her daughter's abuse claims seriously. Daniel's family says Sierra's accusations are lies and that her father was simply trying to protect her from a dangerous relationship. 3 narratives, 1 tragedy. What we know for certain is this. On April 9th, 2021, Daniel Halseth was found dead in his garage. On October 19th, 2022, his daughter and her boyfriend were sentenced to life in prison. And somewhere in the digital archives of this case, video still exists, showing 2 teenagers laughing about the worst thing they would ever do. Daniel Halseth was a father who wanted to protect his daughter. Sierra Halseth was a daughter who wanted to be with the boy she loved. Aaron Guerrero was a young man with untreated mental illness and a weapon. These facts laid side by side don't create a coherent story. They create a tragedy, one that will continue to go for decades to come. Every time Sierra or Aaron appears before a parole board, every time Daniel's family marks the anniversary of his death, every time someone watches that video and wonders how children could be so casual about taking a life. In the end, maybe that's the only thing we can say with certainty. Daniel Halseth did not deserve to die in his garage, stabbed 70 times, burned, and forgotten. And no teenage romance, no matter how intense, should never, ever have a body count. This episode was researched using court documents, news reports from KTNV, Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the Nevada Globe, and interviews with family, therapists, Jacent Wamala. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to a mental health professional. The number for the National Suicide Prevention Line is 988. If you or someone you know is experiencing family violence, resources are available through the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones we love. In the next episode, I'm going back to 1987 when a man named Ken Parks with a serious sleeping disorder gets up one night and drives to his in-laws and kills them with a tire iron. Trust me, you won't believe this story. It's another wild one. And as always, stay safe. Please take care of yourself after listening to this episode. Do something grounding, call a friend, pet a dog, sit in the sunlight for a few minutes. The darkness in these stories is real, but so is the light in the world. Don't forget to find it. Please like and subscribe to my channel. You can find Dark Roast Caffeine Case Files on Spotify, Facebook, Substack, Instagram, and YouTube. Stay tuned for more coffee and more crime. Bye now.